Did you hear? Prime Minister Andrew Holness's recent visit to the United States capital, Washington, D.C., has borne fruit. Following a bilateral meeting with Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, it was announced that Jamaica will benefit from a $40 million investment. The funds are expected to go towards boosting commerce, building human capital, reducing violence against at-risk youth, as well as energy, climate change, and COVID-19 recovery. This investment will undoubtedly redound to Jamaica's benefit as we seek to reach developed nation status by the year 2030. This is Jamaica Magazine, and I'm your host, Adrian Atkinson.
What a way you're full of our roots and culture. That was in Jamaica 60. Jamaica 60? What a piece of news, Miss Matty. I feel like my heart going bust up.
Just in, the island of Jamaica is on the verge of celebrating its 60th year of independence.
I only way of celebrating it. They say the people them come here, you know. But you see, when our people decide, say the other people them free paper, burn up, them say if it's war, start it, whatever. We all collect medal panta fight, you know.
Medal.
Amount of tongue we give them, you know.
These celebrations are slated to begin on January 1st, 2022. Organized by the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport. We have more in this report.
I am on site and planning activities are ablaze. Persons are advised to download the Reggae Jamaica app to know what it pre. Activities for the Jamaica 60 celebration.
Yeah. I download the app to get the updates then.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Monday, April 4, 2022. American Airlines will start offering international flights out of the Ian Fleming International Airport later this year, allowing for non-stop flights between Miami and Ocho Rios on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Transport and Mining Minister Audley Shaw made the announcement in a press statement on Friday. He says the decision follows meetings held earlier this year with senior executives of American Airlines, along with several government and private sector officials. Flights will be offered through the Envoy E-175 aircraft with a capacity to seat between 76 and 88 passengers in business and economy class. The airline will be flying the smaller aircrafts into Boscobel 2 times per week, commencing in November. To accommodate the new service, Minister Shaw says government is ensuring that adequate support systems are in place at the Ian Fleming Airport. These include additional building space for staffing and adequate firefighting equipment. The Transport Minister says this decision is well-timed as the country also looks forward to American Airlines beginning flights from Austin, Texas to Montego Bay this June. This, he says, will greatly improve the country's tourism product, but also offer easier access for the Jamaican diaspora living in these and neighboring states to visit and return home. A National Identification System (NIDS) implementation task force has been launched to drive adoption of the National Identification Card. Minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister, Floyd Green, is chairman of the task force, which is comprised of private and public sector leaders. During the group's first meeting last week, representatives from the government agencies reported that they were ready to update their information systems to adopt and support NIDS usage. Members of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, PSOJ, said they anticipated that the National Identification System would simplify the services they offer to the public. Program Director of the NIDS project, Dr. Warren Vernon, says the NIDS card production and vetting center is 95% completed. Minister Green is reiterating the need for the public's confidence in the security of the cards, pointing out that they possess high-level encryption features with governance and oversight to deter misuse. The Department of Correctional Services, DCS, has had its human capacity boosted with the recent intake of 93 correctional officers. The passing out parade ceremony for the 81st intake of correctional officers was held at the Carl Rattray Staff College in Runaway Bay, St. Anne. The cohort of newly inducted officers includes 78 males and 15 females. Minister of State in the Ministry of National Security, Xavier Main, reminded the correctional officers that the DCS plays an important role in improving national security and safeguarding public order.
The department contributes to national security by securing, supervising, rehabilitating, and reintegrating offenders as productive, law-abiding citizens. Always be your best. Act boldly with the strategies and procedures while utilizing the knowledge learned.
He also warned the graduates of the consequences they will face should they engage in corruption.
The Corrections Act was amended in December of 2021 to impose not just heavier fines, but provide for prison time for officers who are found to be in breach of their calling and their duties, and facilitate the movement of prohibited items within our correctional facilities.
Jamaica is looking to secure large-scale investors coming out of this year's World Free Zone Organization conference to be held in Montego Bay in June. Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Senator Aubin Hill, says the country will be looking to attract investors from the 1,000 to 1,500 people among the very high-level spending investment community that will be in attendance.
And of course, the Jamaica Special Economic Zone Authority is preparing investment packages for all our visitors so they can see what we have in Jamaica in which they can invest. And of course, the climate to invest in Jamaica is welcoming and is really attractive for investors, especially given our local citation very close to the biggest market in the world, the United States, and of course you add Canada to that.
Minister Hill was addressing a recent JIS think tank. Acting CEO of the Jamaica Special Economic Zone Authority, Gary Scott, is chairman of the local organizing committee for the World Free Zone's annual International Conference 2022. He says Jamaica's plan to set up large-scale special economic zones across the island will be showcased at the conference.
Coming closely out of the pandemic, that supply chains demand have changed, and so Jamaica wants to position itself in such a way that we can attract investments that will see large-scale special economic zones being built here in Jamaica.
He says the Jamaica Promotions Corporation, JAMPRO, and the Port Authority of Jamaica will also seek to stimulate investors' appetite for several other logistics and infrastructure-related projects. And finally, small business operators in Port Maria and its environs are benefiting from flood relief checks to help recover from losses suffered due to severe flooding in the coastal town earlier this year. A total of 209 business operators will benefit from the support totaling more than $8 million. An initial 35 flood relief checks were handed over at the St. Mary's Anglican Church Hall last week. Beneficiaries are receiving checks valued at $25,000, $50,000, $75,000, or $100,000 based on the level of damage sustained as determined by an assessment done by the Social Development Commission, SDC. Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Desmond McKenzie, says this initial disbursement is intended to assist the operators get on the path to recovery. At the same time, he says a technical team has been established to address the problem of flooding in the town.
There's a joint up approach. The National Works Agency, the Municipal Corporation, the Ministry, throughout PEM, and our technical team is looking at how we can work to ease some of the challenges.
The Ministry of Labour and Social Security is also aiding approximately 800 affected homeowners and more than 100 arcade vendors impacted by flooding. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
Without a doubt, tourism is Jamaica's #1 industry, and our dedicated workers are its greatest asset. Jamaica would not be the heartbeat of the world without you. As the industry rebounds from the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, we truly need all hands on deck, yours included. Vaccination holds the hope for tourism's full recovery. In addition to COVID-19 protocols, it is the only comprehensive way to fight the pandemic and save lives. I am therefore urging every worker in the tourism and hospitality industry, in all the subsectors, including accommodation, attractions, entertainment, transportation, and craft, to do your part and get vaccinated. Do it for yourself, your family, your workplace, and your community. Do it for Jamaica, land we love. Stay safe. Get vaccinated.
According to data from the Ministry of National Security, the inability to amicably resolve domestic disputes has been fingered as one of the major causes of violence on the island. In 2021, violent crimes increased by 10%, but through targeted government intervention, the figures are steadily declining. One of the programs is the Domestic Abuse Hotlines and centers manned by the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Take a look.
All that is an actual story, a story all too familiar. And well, that's a part of my story. Growing up, I've seen my father flip over the simplest of things. He would basically change from an angel to a devil in a flash. I remember this instance. My mom told me that she was coming home from work one evening because she worked very close to where he lived. She was coming home from work, and usually when you're leaving work, it's a lot of persons leaving at the same time, and she was talking to one of her co-workers and she smiled at him. He smiled back, and my father saw that, and when she went home, he was ready for her. He was like, "Oh, see, I smile at my pan the road, you smile at my pan the road." He beat her, he stripped her naked, and he chased her in front of the yard so all her co-workers could see. So all her co-workers could see her.
Domestic abuse or domestic violence is not just physical abuse. The physical abuse basically for us is the end product coming from somewhere else. So you have stalking, you have intimidation, you have threat, you have psychological abuse, the ones that I'll tell you, I play on your emotions as to what I can do.
It was known to everybody that this was the type of person she was dating, this was the type of man he was. Even the security at the gate, the manager, everyone. So it's not like her life was a secret. If she could not have any friends. He was the only person she could talk to, go anywhere with. If someone even talked to her and she not acknowledging them, she would get beaten for that. The least good thing, he would flip on her.
Usually, persons who are perpetrators of domestic violence are usually men, and usually they are persons who were controlling over their intimate partners. They tend to have a high level of jealousy, and they tend to be very possessive. And as such, you find that they will have a pattern of behavior where they will always check where the partner is by various means, whether by calling the person, asking the person where they are, also want to know what they're communicating with. So are they communicating persons on email, WhatsApp, other social media platform? They also want to make sure that they know where they are at all times and that they're not interacting with other persons outside, so they tend to want to have them stay home, for example, and lose connection with their families and friends.
A lot of persons knew that my mom was being abused. Well, the type of man that my father was, everyone was afraid of him. My neighbor was afraid of him. His neighbor was afraid of him. It's like anyone who came into contact with him would get hurt because he's not a simple person. I'm not sure if it's because of his build. He's really fit, he's really tall, muscular, so he's not afraid.
As community members, we have a moral responsibility that within our homes and within our communities, once we are aware that there are instances of domestic abuse and domestic violence and we seek help, best place to go? To the police. Ask the police to intervene. Intervention can be that the police directs the victim to a counseling center, because we have partnership with churches, right? We have partnership with other organizations, Justices of the Peace, counselors.
Every time she escaped him, he would either stalk her, chase her, go to her either friend's house, wherever she went, friend's house, mother's house, cousin's house. No matter where she went, he would find her, go for her with a gun, knife, machete, whatever it may be, and she would always have to go back with him. No one, no matter how much they try to fight and help her, he would always get her back. And when she goes back with him, the beating got worse, the abuse got worse, the rape got worse, everything got worse.
Have an escape plan. Your escape plan cannot be where the perpetrator knows that you're going over to your mother's house because he's aware of where your mother lives. The escape plan cannot be, I'm going to go stay by my friend because he knows where your friends are. If it's a life-threatening abuse, that's where you go to the courts to seek a protection order or an occupation order or both.
I would say maybe around primary school. I'm not sure the exact age. I was told that there was a restraining order for me and between me and my father. He should not be about, I'm not sure how much feet from me. He's not allowed to be near me at all. This time I was living with my grandmother because my mom got full custody now. They had went through court and everything and fought her way, so there was no more hiding from him. He knew where I was living now because she got custody and he had to basically step away.
The protection order will say you are not to be seen, you are to remove one party is to leave the household because of the volatility of the situation. The court may say, look here, one party must leave the household and reside elsewhere. And a lot of times it's the abuser that the court will say, look, stay somewhere else until the matter is heard. Or you're not to be seen in the workplace of the person.
The abuse that my mom endured, the physical abuse and the verbal abuse that I basically endured from my father, it has caused me to basically lock myself away from people. I'm always by myself, 90% of the time I would say. I'm always by myself. Throughout high school, I've had counseling. I was rebellious because I felt like no one loved me. I struggled in the relationship department, friendship. I have anger issues. I've learned to control it because of counseling. I had this teacher, she helped me throughout high school and university.
Counseling able to revisit what happened, able to process it in a more positive way and more realistic way. So you don't put all the blame on yourself, but you realize that a lot of it wasn't your fault. And then help you now to, having dealt with it, to try to move on. Because a lot of persons, because they don't deal with it, they find it difficult to relate to other persons because of the fact that they're still carrying baggage of what happened to them before.
The Domestic Violence Intervention Centers, one of those facilities that were donated by the US Embassy, and it's a partnership between the JCF and the US Embassy, to create a facility where persons can come and speak about domestic violence and domestic abuse related issues within their home. And so it's a safe space for both victims and perpetrator. And it offers counseling to family members, to victims, also to perpetrators. We have two centers that are currently operational. One is at the Matilda's Corner Police Station. You can call the Matilda's Corner Police Station for that. The other one is at Air 5 headquarters. That's on the same compound as Constant Spring Police Station. The number is 702-5120 or 702-5121.
We also have available mental health and suicide helpline. And these helplines are 24-hour service, which is toll-free, where persons can call So it can be either persons calling on behalf of others that they have been exposed to domestic violence. So the helpline is toll free and 888 New Life, which is 888-639-5433. And the 24-hour service, 7 days per week.
If you know someone is being abused, say something, do something.
The travel file application was created by the Transport Authority for the protection of the commuting public. Please download the travel file application on the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store. Once you download the application, put in your phone number, register the application under your phone number, and then you'll be able to verify the license plate that you're going in. Once you verify the license plate and the information of the vehicle, you will then be able to share that trip of the vehicle that you're in. And if there is difficulty on the trip, you will be able to push a panic button and share your location with others as well. Download the application, give us our feedback at customerservice@ta.org.jm. Don't forget, it's free to download, free to use.
On February 14, the Disabilities Act, which was first passed in 2014, came into effect. The law provides the disabled community with equal rights and protection, as well as the full enjoyment of everything that comes with being a Jamaican. That also means being protected from discrimination, which often comes in the form of name-calling. Get up to speed on the do's and don'ts of interacting with members of the community.
Call me Nefishiba.
Call the person by their names if you know their names, and if you don't know their names, ask. I recall when I was growing up, disability was not a word. Most persons who had varying impairments, people used to call them, even today, I'll use this one. They call persons with one hand or one foot one-y. And they call persons who are deaf the D word, which I will not say. The Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the Disabilities Act push forward that you put the person first. So I know sometimes we love to say the disabled man. He is a man first and foremost. And so I know too that some members of the disability community, they don't mind. But if we want to be politically correct, just remember it's a person first.
I know many of our children and youths and even adults, they face labeling in their communities. And one of the derogatory terms that people would use to describe them is that you're retard or you're retarded. And those are terms that, you know, emotionally, they hurt persons with intellectual disability because you are seeing the person with a condition and not the person.
I am Hanaki.
They are also referred to as handicapped.
Don't call me that.
Don't call me that.
But we all know that what we refer to as a handicap is a barrier that you place. It can be a physical barrier, it can be an attitudinal barrier that you place on the person, you know, but the person is not a handicap. Anybody with a disability is a person first. And so you address the person. Do you, the tall person? No. You would call the person by him or her, by his or her name. So address the persons by their names.
You might say that, but the person is deaf, I can't sign. Ask them, maybe they can write, or maybe they can lip it, you know, and you figure it out together. Or if someone is in the space, they can maybe tell you, but ask. It's always nice to ask. And people who are blind are not necessarily deaf. So we do not need to shout and, you know, scream if it's a person who is blind. They can hear and they can speak.
it's a challenge, but for most persons will find the term visually impaired acceptable. People have many ways of referring to persons who are blind, which, you know, we in the blind community will find quite derogatory, right? There are terms that people use, you know, sometimes, you know, the tease of the other children, for example, you know, referring to them as bat or blind bat, or blinky, or cast eye, or, you know, those terms obviously are not acceptable terms, and are you know, not terms of endearment at all.
I recently went to a function, and the question was asked in the room, what do you think, what are the words that come to mind when you hear the word deaf? And everybody, you know, in the audience sought to say no hearing, discriminated against, and all those kinds of words. And the deaf person said, what about champion? What about an achiever? What about a motivator? What about those positive words that we refer to others in society as? People with disabilities are those too. And so if we begin there, no, you do not have to pay money to change an attitude. An attitude is a decision. And so if Jamaicans, out of understanding that people with disabilities are people and they have capabilities, abilities like everybody else, then I think that will be a humongous achievement, because it will then have a ripple effect on everything else that happens in society.
We are just like you. We have the same needs, we do the same things. We work, we have families, we cook, we wash, we clean, we do all the same things. We are not different. It means that when you're thinking of persons who are blind or visually impaired, you know, think of us as, you know, your brother, your sister. The same things that you need, the same things that you want, respect, the need for autonomy, those are the same things that we want.
I know a lot of persons might say, but that is what they are. And I would say, no, that is not what they are. The disability might be part of their person, but they are not their disability. The disability is a condition. And so all the other derogatory words that are utilized, if we put ourselves in the position, recognizing that disability is no respecter of persons, whether class or socioeconomic status, color, disability has no bias. And so in these days when we have those beautiful roads and we drive on them at high speeds and we can end up in accidents, a disability is a second away.
That's all the time we have left here on this station. Missed aspects of today's or other shows? Visit our YouTube channel to catch up. We're also available at your leisure on our website, social media pages, and our mobile app that's Android and iOS compatible. On behalf of the entire team here at the GIS, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Thank you so much for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.